The Bears hit the turf. Thuney gets his extension, and the world lost a great one. We're going to get into all that and more right after this. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to 4-Star Chicago Sports. This is the Barely There podcast, and we are live with you. I got Kyle in the house. Jay is missing today. He had his niece's graduation. Congratulations, Kaylee. He'll be back with us next week. But until then, we're going to carry the show, and we got you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join in the chat as we're going to fire away some OTA business. We're going to talk about this Joe Thuney extension, this offensive line as a whole, talk a little Luther Burden, his impact on this football team. And, of course, if you missed it, the world lost a great one yesterday. Mr. George Wendt, Bob Schwarzky, super fan, Chicago Bears, passed away in his sleep. And we'll talk about that just a little bit later on in the show. So, Kyle, how are you today? How's that neck doing, or how's that shoulder doing today?
Shoulder is not much better, Sean, but I'm doing all right besides, man.
Hey, Daniel Jeffries, Bear Down buddy, breaking news, Bruce, Bear Down guys. Thanks for jumping in early. Let's get right into this. The Bears did hit the grass today, and apparently there was some pre-snap problems and some things you expect with the new offense being installed. And Ben Johnson was very aggressive, loud, and animated on the field. And the Bears were missing some players, notable players like Kyler Gordon. Luther Burden was injured again, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. There was no Andrew Billings. Did I miss a couple guys, Kyle? We know Colston Loveland's out until training camp.
Yeah, it's just Kyler Gordon, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Andrew Billings. I don't think Amagaji participated either. Obviously, Braxton Jones isn't doing anything as well.
Yeah, it says Grady Jarrett, Shamar Turner is apparently. I'm just reading some things here, guys. Shamar Turner is going to be, or Grady Jarrett, excuse me, is going to be a direct mentor from Shamar Turner. Shamar Turner talked about this in his post-game presser that Jarrett's going to take him under his wing. I would highly suggest you guys look at Grady Jarrett because his post-game press conference today was awesome. And Dustin says Nate Davis opted out of practice today, which comes to no surprise. Joe Thuney was there. He talked about his extension. Not a lot to gather. Did you gather any information, Kyle, that you want to share from Bears OTAs today?
No, I mean, there was one Bears beat writer. I forgot who it was, but he said he was surprised with the amount of mistakes. I'd be surprised if there wasn't mistakes, Sean. I mean, this is a brand new coaching staff with almost a brand new team. They've added, 20 players in the offseason. I mean, it's almost another season with a major roster turnover. I would be completely surprised if there wasn't a ton of mistakes made at their first day together on a football field.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to take away, I'm just going to play this cut. I didn't have a lot of time to get stuff loaded into the system, but there's a lot of stuff in the media right now, especially with Caleb Williams, with Seth Wickersham's book that's coming out, and our head coach talked about it just a little bit.
Chicago Bears.
Chuck, come closer.
Did you see that? And what do you think when you hear that? I love it. I love the opportunity to come on in and change that narrative. That's where great stories are written. And so we're looking to write a new chapter here, 2025 Chicago Bears, and looking forward to the future. It's come to my attention that the quarterback's been out in the media over the last week, and just to get out in front of that a little bit, I just wanted to say I wasn't here last year, and so I can't speak too much in terms of what it was like before he got here and when he got here last year. But for my 4 months on the job, he's been outstanding to work with, and we just are focusing on getting a little better every day.
And these are the things that we've been talking about. That book came out. I think that there was a big narrative. I think a lot of people knew there was some drawback for him wanting to be here. And this is just bringing up old stories and old stuff. I'm ready. I don't know about you, Kyle. I'm ready to put all this behind me. It seems like Ben Johnson is and Caleb Williams are a match made in heaven. They're sold. They're ready to work and turn this narrative around. As he said, this is where quarterbacks go to die. Hey, guess what? We're going to change that narrative. We're going to build something here special in Chicago. That's my coach. That's the guy I wanted. And as Daniel Jeffries said here in the chat, the coach was getting in their butts today, man, and that's great to see. I don't think that was something you saw under the past regime with Matt Eberflus. I'm glad from day one he's kicking them right in the tush. Like, let's get it going, boys. This is what needs to be corrected. Mistakes are being worked on, something you also didn't hear in the last regime. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy just hearing some of these post-game or post-practice interviews today. And it seems like things are starting to come together. And like you said, Kyle, new system, there's going to be problems. There's going to be bumps in the road. I've said this for the last 3 shows in a row. I expect bumps in the road. There should be bumps in the road. I mean, if this works out to be perfect, awesome. But in the meantime, let them work on it. Let's not look too much into things. Kyle, what are your thoughts on what the coach had to say and these first, little snippets we're getting of this offense being installed?
Well, first and foremost, what's up, Daniel Jeffries? What's up, Breaking News, Bruce, Dustin Jones, Aunt Mass, Erica? We appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you so much. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Elizabeth is in the building. Yeah, Sean, when it comes to Ben Johnson, I really don't think he reads too much into what happened in the pre-draft process with Caleb Williams. And matter of fact, Sean, I really don't think he gives a shit. I think his focus is on the future. He wasn't here when Caleb Williams was drafted. I bet you there's a big chunk of this organization or the new coaching staff that can't blame Caleb Williams for being hesitant about joining the Chicago Bears under Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. We heard Caleb Williams say he did not like Shane Waldron that much before he came to the Chicago Bears. So I think all that's in the past. They turned the page. This is a new coaching staff, a new culture, a new organization almost. But when it comes to the OTAs and the rookie mini camp, yeah, it's nice to see this coaching staff holding people accountable, calling people out for their mistakes, getting on top of these guys early, setting the precedents. You want these guys to respect this coaching staff, something I don't believe they did with the Matt Eberflus coaching staff. And it's nice to see that everybody keeps talking about Ben Johnson has this switch where if he's upset, he'll get at you, man. And that's it's been a long time since we've seen a Bears coach who can hold these guys accountable.
Yeah, it was really interesting because they called him out in the media today for being a little aggressive and looking agitated out there. And he said, "Oh, you think I looked agitated?" He said, "I'm working on that with the players. I'm going to work on that for myself personally." There's going to, like you said, a lot of bumps in the road. This is going to be a fun journey. I'm personally, I got a smile on my face right now. I'm personally so excited to see how this thing develops, how it comes together. There's a lot of new pieces here, a lot of new players. You got 3 new line mates on the offensive line. You don't have your left tackle, so technically you have 4 new line mates playing with Darnell Wright. You have essentially, I'm going to still call him, it's the second year. He's going to be a rookie in this system. Everything has to come together. It's going to take time. It's going to be fantastic to see. And we kind of touched on this last week. These are really smart, intelligent football players, and this is the kind of brand that it looks like Ryan Poles was trying to get. So I expect these guys to pick this up. And as we get closer into training camp, we get into these preseason games, we'll see some more fluid offense, less mistakes as they grasp everything. This is Ben Johnson. From everything I understand, his offense isn't that easy to grasp. So let's give him some time. And I think
Sean, it's almost, you can almost compare it to like parenting, right? When your children are small, you can't be their friend. You have to be their parent, right? And then the older they get and the more they're responsible they become, the more respectful they become, just the more wise they become, the more you can start to be their friends. I think that's kind of what you're seeing at Bears practice right now. I mean, I think Ben Johnson's trying to set this precedent and say, we don't mess around. We don't make mistakes. If you do, we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to call you out. And then the more and more comfortable these players get with learning this offense, learning this defense, learning this scheme, create these relationships with these coaches, and the more these guys start to stop making mistakes and start to perform well, the more I think he'll become more of a player's coach. But early and often, I expect him to do a lot of yelling just to let these guys know, hey, we don't take any bullshit here. This is not, you are here to do a job. You're being paid to do a job. And if you don't do that job, we're going to hold you accountable. And it's like I said, Sean, with the Matt Nagy's and the Mark Trestmans and the Matt Eberflus's and the John Fox, when's the last time we've seen this out of a Bears coach? It's been a very long time for us. I mean, I wasn't alive for Mike Ditka, and I have all the respect in the world for Lovie Smith, Sean, but he wasn't a rah-rah kind of guy. It wasn't very often that you saw Lovie Smith yelling at guys. Now, we've heard stories that he could be an asshole, but you didn't see it ever on television. I can't wait to get to training camp, and when we do get to training camp, Sean, I hope we hear a lot of yelling from this coaching staff. A lot.
What's going on, Phil? Thanks for joining us, bud.
Yeah, Howie, thanks for joining us. Phil, thanks for joining us. Please hit that like button if you guys haven't already, man. We really appreciate you guys. Please continue to be active in the chat here, guys. It's kind of a slow week in the world of football, so we'd like to get to as much of these conversations as we possibly can.
We need your help. Ben Johnson too was asked about the change in the having Caleb put his left foot forward. He said he thinks it helps out certainly with the quick game from the gun, kind of things we talked about. It helps us be a little bit better at throwing posture for a lot of other things that we're asking him to do. When we talked about it initially, he was already kind of exploring it himself. So it wasn't so much us telling him to do it. It was more of a mutual, let's see what it looks like. And it seems like he's taken a knack to it. So obviously this was something that he was kind of maybe picking up on. It just cast that dark shadow over that coaching staff last year. This is something that probably should have been installed the moment he arrived and they started practicing for the first time at Hallis Hall last season. So a year late, but hopefully not too late for Caleb Williams. I think he'll pick it up. I think he'll be just fine. So a lot of good things that are coming out. We'll keep an eye on the next couple of days of OTAs. If anything pops, we'll do an emergency pod or just check out our Facebook page or our website, 4starchicagosports.com. We'll get something up there. If anything important happens, I don't expect too many big stories to come out of this OTAs. How about you, Kyle?
No, Sean, all I'm hoping for is just health. Please just stay healthy. I mean, this team has dealt with injuries, particularly the offensive line in the secondary for 3-4 years in a row now. I'd just like to see the Bears come out of even preseason, just come out of this healthy. When it pertains to Caleb Williams, changes his stance, changing his footwork, this is probably something that should have been done in college, Sean, or at least they should have been sprinkling some of this in college, getting him ready for the big league. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys we've talked about on the Bears, Mitch Trubisky, Justin Fields, these quarterbacks we've had in the past that I think the coaching staff felt like they couldn't overload them. They didn't want to put too much on their plate. Maybe they weren't really quick learners. I think the opposite could be said about Caleb Williams. All we've heard about Caleb Williams is how hard he works and how smart he is and how quickly he retains information. So I think this should be, I mean, obviously it's not going to be a seamless transition, Sean. There's going to be some bumps in the road. He's going to, when people talk about the stuff outside the box, they act like this stuff is so easy. You're talking about changing something he hasn't done in his entire life, something he's really never played under center. So there's going to be fumbled snaps. There's going to be he's going to trip and fall sometimes, just turning his back to the offensive line. It's going to take a while to gain the trust with these guys so that when he turns his back, coming out from under center for that play action stuff, he's going to have to trust these guys and hope that there's not somebody bearing down on him. But as long as this offensive line stays healthy, Sean, I think that's something that'll come along within week 5, 6, 7. You'll start to see Caleb Williams look like a professional NFL quarterback, especially playing under center.
Yeah, and you know what? He's got a lot of weapons around him. He's got a pretty good offensive lineman who we're going to talk about right now in this seamless transition. As we all heard this week, the big breaking story was Joe Thuney did get his 2-year, $35 million extension with the Chicago Bears, the deal which includes $33.5 million guaranteed. And it just underscores the Bears' commitment to bolstering their offensive line to protect Caleb Williams, who endured a league-high 68 sacks during the rookie season. And as we've talked about, many a times, this guy has started all 146 regular season games in his career. The durability, the leadership, his versatility, his ability to play multiple positions along the line. This was a great hire or a great addition to the club. Not only a great addition to the club, but just another coach on the field, a guy that we've talked about, Dustin and Brandon and you and myself, that we've talked about will just help enhance this offensive line. To me, we're we started talking about these pieces because they did also extend Jonah Jackson, and I believe he got a 1-year extension through 2027. So now you have Joe Thuney here, you have Jackson here, you have Dolman signed to that long-term deal. You still have Darnell Wright. We still have the question at left tackle, what that long-term situation is going to be like. So do you feel, Kyle, in your mind, that right now the Bears have 4 solid pieces, or do you say, much like I do, we have 3 solid pieces because Jackson, to me, is still a question mark? And a couple of our chat members here, and I can't remember who that was, brought up some questions. It was Howie. He asked, why extend Jonah Jackson? Only 4 games played last year, 12 games played before that. If he gets injured or benched for poor play like he did by McVay, you could see Braxton, Thuney, Dahlman, Darnell Wright, and Trapillo. What are your thoughts on this offensive line as far as the strengths and where they line up right now, especially with those 4 guys with still the question mark on the left side?
Well, bear with me here, Sean, because it's going to be a little bit of a rant. But I've been talking about offensive line for the last 3 months. I couldn't be happier with what Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears did this offseason, particularly with this Joe Thuney extension. So obviously, Sean, as you just mentioned, he is now with the Chicago Bears under a 3-year, $51 million contract. It was a 2-year extension worth $35 million. He's $33.5 million in guarantees. His contract pays him $17 million annually, which makes him the 4th highest paid left guard in the NFL and the 10th highest paid overall guard in the NFL. And Sean, just another amazing contract by Ryan Poles. If you look at Joe Thuney's numbers, he is the 12th overall ranked guard last year. He was 5th in pass blocking, and he was top 20 in run blocking. If you look at the contract, I know people are going to say, well, he's paid as the 10th highest guard in the NFL, but he's ranked 12th overall. Yeah, but you guys, every single time a player is paid in the NFL, the expectation is that they will reset the market. Joe Thuney didn't do that. When he got paid by the Chicago Bears, Ryan Poles, when he got this extension, he didn't reset the market by any means necessary. He got paid exactly what he was owed. He got paid exactly what he's earned for how well he's played and for how healthy he's stayed. You're talking about I'm not just talking about offensive linemen or guards here, Sean. This guy has stayed on the field more than any other player in the NFL over the entirety of his career. He rarely ever gets hurt. Knock on wood. But just another home run contract by Ryan Poles. I think Joe Thuney, I don't think you can overstate how important Joe Thuney is to this offensive line because, like you said, Sean, we still really don't know who the left tackle of the future is. We know they have some guys that can play here now. We know have some guys who can kind of be these bridge players, kind of fill the gap until they go get that guy, unless it ends up being Ozzie Trapillo. But that being said, Joe Thuney being one of the best pass protecting guards in the NFL will help that left tackle out tremendously, help him pick up stunts, and maybe even help him learn on the job. And on top of that, like I said, the better Darnell Wright gets every year, and I do expect him to take another leap forward this year, the more you can use that tight end and running back help, that chip help on the left side with the left tackle.
Yeah.
But, when you talk about the Bears offensive line, you could kind of see a pattern starting to be created here, right, Sean? These guys are all basically here through 2027, and that's going to be the year after the 2027 season or during the 2027 season is when the Bears are going to have to extend Caleb Williams if they decide he is the quarterback of the future. Right now, Joe Thuney's on a three-year, $51 million contract through 2027. Darnell Wright is on a 4-year rookie, $21 million contract. And the 5th-year option would be through 2027. Now, I don't expect them to pick up the 5th-year option. I expect them to extend Darnell Wright and sign entirely new contract. Jonah Jackson signed a 3-year contract with the Chicago Bears worth $52.5 million. And that contract is, once again, through 2027. And I think the reason that the Bears gave Jonah Jackson a new contract wasn't because they're so confident in his playing ability, Sean. I think it's because they just basically restructured the money and they could get out of this contract much easily now than they could have before extending him after the 1st or 2nd year. There won't be as much dead cap now that they've extended him and they've spread that money out a little bit. Drew Dahlman is here on a 3-year, $42 million contract, also through 2027. Left tackles where things get a little bit interesting for the Chicago Bears. Braxton Jones is in the last year of his rookie contract in the 2025 season. Kron Amagaji being drafted last year in the 3rd round, so he does not get that 5th-year option. has 3 years left on his rookie contract, which puts him here through 2027. And now Ozzie Trapilo has 4 years left on his rookie contract that he just signed through 2028. So the Chicago Bears have the core of their offensive line here through 2027. It's through the time in which they're going to probably plan on extending Caleb Williams. We've heard people talking about Caleb getting upwards of $50-60 million a year. That's why they want all these contracts to expire the year that they're extending Caleb Williams. And we've seen this in the NFL 1,000 times, right, Sean? Once you give out that massive contract to the quarterback, it becomes much tougher to plug the holes on the roster. I think what the Bears are hoping is by the time 2027 comes around and they're planning on extending Caleb Williams, this is one of those guys, kind of like a Patrick Mahomes, who could make everybody around him better, and he doesn't have to be surrounded by all-star talent, all-pro talent all across the field. The left tackle is going to be interesting. I do not expect Braxton Jones to be here in 2026. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, Braxton Jones is one of Ryan Poles' favorite draft picks. He loves him. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ryan Poles is willing to fork over $20 million for an average left tackle. I think Karan Amagaji or Ozzie Trapilo are going to have to battle it out for that left tackle spot. And at the end of preseason, or maybe at the end of the regular season, when these guys have a little bit more playing experience, because we do expect some injuries, we do expect these guys to be on the field at some point. At the end of the season, once they've evaluated the overall play of the offensive line, then I think they'll decide whether they want one of these guys to be the left tackle of the future or if they're going to go draft one next year or add one in free agency. But we've talked about this numerous times, Sean, and so has Ryan Poles. When it comes to those premium positions, those positions that are very expensive in the NFL, wide receiver, corner, left tackle, defensive end, quarterback, you want to find these guys in the draft. So I'm pretty sure the Bears have their fingers crossed that either Karan Amagaji or Ozzie Trapilo end up being the left tackle of the future for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and I will tell you this. I don't expect the Bears to be in the top 10, but I do expect them out of 32 NFL teams to be somewhere in between 14, 16 next year in the NFL draft. If they exceed those expectations, I would be very
great, right? Good.
Yeah, extremely happy.
That means this offensive line is probably better than we thought.
Correct. But I will tell you this. This draft in 2026 is extremely deep. And I did a little dive into the left tackles coming into the college, out of college into the draft next year. And I will tell you this, if you go to Draft Buzz, which is one of my favorite places to look at these up-and-coming prospects into the NFL, they have 6 players, 6 offensive left tackles right now. They say that could be day one starters for an NFL football team next year, which means this draft of left tackles next year is going to be a hell of a lot richer than the 2025 NFL draft. So if this doesn't work out, if Trapilo doesn't work out, if Karan Amagaji doesn't develop, I think there's a really good chance the Bears can use maybe some of their draft capital, either trade up in the draft to draft this left tackle, or possibly stay and get their guy at 14 to 16, somewhere right in there, 14, 15, 16. This Spencer Fano, Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor is a guy that dude, this guy is 6'7", 369 pounds. He's coming in right now as the number 2 rated tackle in the draft next year. That is a massive humanity. So there are also a few that the guy Emil Wagner from Notre Dame, he's like 6'6", 290. He's coming in. So there are some smaller guys. The kid from Iowa, he's 290. But there are going to be other options on the table if these guys on this roster don't develop. I don't know. I don't want to pass judgment on a guy like Karan Amagaji just yet. The guy has not played a lot of football since he's been injured. He's missed an incredible amount of time. I know when he had that small sample size, he was put in an inevitable situation with against Minnesota that was just not a place where you want to see a rookie get his first snaps. You just don't want to see that. So I let this kid put a little more seasoning on that steak. He's a big man. He seems to have some good athletic ability and attributes to him if you read his profile. And honestly, when you look at Trapilo, every scouting thing that I've read said he was the most pro-ready tackle in this class this year. And I don't know that this class of tackles was that good compared to some other class. But I'm okay with the development and the slow process because I'm looking at it and saying there's going to be a left tackle in this draft. It looks like there's a number 5 or 6 of them that are going to be pro NFL ready tackles next year. And obviously you got to go through the college season because these people, you learn with Luther Burden. Luther Burden was a top 5 pick coming into the season, and the Bears were able to get him at 39. So
and the same could be said for Josh Simmons as well. He was projected to be a top 5 pick the previous season. Then he ended up with getting that injury, and then he ended up falling in the draft. Sean, real quick, Phil's asking who's the Goliath on? Is that Notre Dame?
Caden Proctor is on Alabama.
Alabama. So, yeah, what a surprise. They got one of the top recruits in all of the country. But I mean, Sean, the hope is that Ozzie Trapilo is a starting left tackle in the NFL. This is a guy, a 2nd-round pick. I believe he was picked 56 overall. That is a guy who should be starting in the NFL. Even if he's not the greatest left tackle in the league, he should, by default, be better than both Karan Amagaji and Braxton Jones, solely just based off of where you drafted him. I mean, draft capital is very, very valuable in the NFL. Those first 3 rounds, you have to hit on those guys. I expect Ozzie Trapilo to be a better starting left tackle than Braxton Jones. Like I said, I'm not saying if you put him in there and he's better than Braxton Jones, that means it's your end-all be-all and he's set there for the next 5 years.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is he's certainly better, and he's certainly better than the likes of Larry Borum. So if there is an injury over there to the left tackle, the Bears will be in a much better position this year than they were last year when they had to lean on Larry Borum or, like you said, Karan Amagaji, who barely played any football at all. But yeah, ultimately, Sean, you'd like to see Ozzie Trapilo get a shot over there, and all Bears fans should be rooting for him and hope that he performs well enough to be the left tackle of the future. It just remains to be seen. The NFL, college football to the NFL is one of the toughest transitions of any professional sport. It's a totally different game. Everybody in the NFL is bigger, stronger, faster. It's the best of the best in the world, and it's going to be a tall task for Ozzie Trapilo, and pardon my pun.
It's for me, it's the process. This is a whole new thing. I love today. We're worried about the left tackle. We're worried about some of these injuries, and you know my feelings about Jonah Jackson. I am not sold on him. I wasn't sold on him the day that the Bears signed him. I hope he proves me wrong. Obviously, Ben Johnson likes him. I think this is a Ben Johnson movie at his best seasons under Ben Johnson in Detroit.
And Sean, he also had a decent PFF grade on the Rams when he was at right guard. He didn't have a good PFF grade overall, but that they're including his snaps at center when you look at the Pro Football Focus grade overall. When he was playing right guard, he was a much better player than he was at center. We know he lost his job at center to, I think it was a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. He ended up losing his job too, but I expect Jonah Jackson to play more like the Jonah Jackson under Ben Johnson than he did last year with the Rams. This is obviously a different scheme. Every team you go to runs a different scheme. Maybe it just wasn't the right scheme fit for Jonah Jackson. But yeah, Sean, if you're asking me today, what are my biggest concerns coming into the season in regards to the offensive line? You have to say that right guard and left tackle spot for sure, because if Drew Dahlman, Joe Thuney, and Darnell Wright can stay healthy, I'd say those guys are cemented in as your starters for the entire season, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and again, I don't want to get too down on Jackson. He does have some, like you said, Kyle, he has some good numbers at right guard. My question for him is, can he stay healthy? And if he can't, and he's hurt and he misses time like he did with Los Angeles, who's the right guard? Like that's a big question mark. Who is that good piece? And maybe because you have a Dahlman, you have a Wright, and you're putting that below average piece, whoever that may be, into that spot, maybe he's elevated because of the players around him. You still have Thuney that will be next to him. So maybe they can help elevate those players themselves. Well, there's questions to be answered still.
Yeah, Sean, real quick. I mean, because we know that the Bears previously had on their website under depth chart, see or come back and see after training camp, and this will be set in stone. But they did actually end up putting a depth chart online for the Bears. And the offensive line, like we've talked about, is this offensive line better than last year? Absolutely 100%, no doubt about it. But here's what Sean and I have been talking about for the last month, guys. There are definitely still some concerns here. So when it comes to the depth chart, they have Braxton Jones penciled in at starting left tackle, followed by Karan Amagaji and Theo Benedette. Those are your backups.
Yeah.
Joe Thuney penciling at left guard, followed by Ryan Bates and Chris Glazer, who I've never even heard of, guys. Drew Dahlman is your starting center, followed by Doug Kramer and Luke Newman, and then Ricky Stromberg as your number 4. I don't think Ricky Stromberg or Chris Glazer will make this team, to be honest with you, Sean. Jonah Jackson is in at your starter at your right guard spot, followed by Bill Murray and Jordan McFadden. Jordan McFadden, another guy who I really haven't heard much about. I know I've heard his name mentioned, but I haven't looked too much into him. And then on your right tackle side, they have Darnell Wright penciled in as the starter. His number 1 backup being Ozzie Trapilo, and then Joshua Miles as the third string there. So, yeah, I mean, if the Bears do sustain major injuries to the offensive line, they're definitely going to be in some trouble. There's no doubt about it. I mean, these are not the names you want to hear when you're if you're talking about a championship caliber roster. Krana Magaji, Ryan Bates, Doug Kramer, Bill Murray, and Ozzie Trapilo are your backups. I think of all the guys we just talked about there, all those names I just mentioned, the only ones we still should have faith in are, I guess, Ozzie Trapilo, Bill Murray, and then maybe Krana Magaji. But I don't think Ryan Bates should be on this team. I don't think he belongs in the NFL, to be honest with you, Sean. Maybe as like a practice squad player or deep reserve player. And then Doug Kramer, we haven't seen him much at center, but he seemed to make a lot of mental mistakes when he was on the football field every single time he came in last year. So I'm assuming you should expect some of those mental mistakes if he comes in to play center as well.
Well, I got Ron. Ron says there's a rumor the Bears are signing Hendrickson, and Ron, I haven't seen anything. I'm not saying you're wrong. The last thing I saw was from Brad Biggs, and I saved it in my notes here. It's he said Brad Biggs says he doesn't see Trey Hendrickson as a fit for the Bears from a financial standpoint, and a team coming off a 5-12 season. If you feel like you're within striking distance of a Super Bowl, you take a shot at him at this position. That would be then a move that you can consider. He said this on the Score 10 hours ago. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I see a couple people here saying that it's a possibility. I guess if he's willing to take a pay cut at his age, I don't want the Bears to pay him $40 million a year.
Yeah,
that's me.
Sean, I don't understand why Bears fans are so gung-ho about Trey Hendrickson. Listen, I know that Bears fans want to win now. They want a Super Bowl today. But the best way to build a team or roster in the NFL is to think about the future. And I don't understand how you could be comfortable with giving a 33-year-old $40 million a year. It just doesn't make sense to me. Basically, you'd be paying Trey Hendrickson for what he did in his career rather than what he's going to do for the Chicago Bears in the future. And at 32, 33 years old, guys, he's only going to get worse from here. Nobody beats Father Time. It's no disrespect to Trey Hendrickson. I think he's been one of the best defensive ends in the NFL over the last 3 seasons. But let's face it, your prime in the NFL lasts for about 3 or 4 seasons. I'd say his best days are probably behind him. And if you're focusing on the future of this team, you want to go try to find a guy at a much cheaper rate or on a rookie contract, not a guy who's in his mid-30s, early to mid-30s, and you're going to have to give him – he's asking for $40 million a year, Sean. He wants the same contract that Max Crosby got. I like Trey Hendrickson a lot, and I know for a fact, guys, he would help this team immediately, but this is the same conversation we're having with Myles Garrett. I just don't think it's a good fit for the Chicago Bears right now. If the Bears, like you said, Sean, were one piece away from winning a championship, I'd be all in, just like the Eagles did with Saquon Barkley. But they're just not – for me personally, guys, this Bears team with a new coaching staff, a quarterback learning a brand new offense, a brand new scheme and has to play under center. I just don't think right now the Bears are in a position to go make that move, for a guy like Trey Hendrickson. That's just me personally. If the Bears do make that move, I'll root for him. I hope he's the best, continues to be the best defensive end in the NFL, averaging 17.5 sacks a year. But right now with the Bears financially, I agree with Brad Biggs. With where the Bears are at financially, I just don't think it's a great fit for them.
Yeah. And I can for all the Bears fans in the chat right now, can I just squash this? The Cole Kmet for Trey Hendrickson thing is never going to happen. I'll tell you why. Because he's got a nice contract on the Chicago Bears, and the Cincinnati Bengals just paid Mike Gesicki $25 million. So what sense would it make to take on that contract? Now you're paying $40 million for 2 tight ends? It doesn't make any sense, guys. I don't see a Kmet for Hendrickson trade in the future. That's me personally. I think that would be financially stupid and a non-roster, something that's not needed on the Bengals roster, especially when you just re-upped Gesicki for $25 million.
Sean, there's a lot of teams in the NFL I think will come out and look really good on. And I think there's a lot of teams in the NFL that could use a guy like Cole Kmet. And if the trade made sense and the price was right and the Bears got something back in return that they thought was valuable enough for the likes of Cole Kmet, I think that is a possibility that he could be traded off this team, but it's certainly not going to be to the Cincinnati Bengals. And then in the chat here, I think it was Dante who said Amagaji is a better prospect than Trapilo. Well, some of the experts disagree with you, Dante. I mean, this guy was projected to be a starting right tackle in the NFL from day one. Amagaji, when he was coming in through the draft, was projected to be a project, a developmental type player. He was coming off an injury. He was injured once again going into training camp. I mean, Karan Amagaji's been in the NFL for a year. He's had a chance for the game to slow down a little bit he's had a chance to get into those NFL weight rooms, get NFL conditioning and NFL diet. And we're still talking about him as a project going into year 2. So I think there's a small chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen, guys, but there's a small chance Ozzie Trapilo could start at left tackle day 1 in the NFL.
And T brings up a good point. Reps are more and more talent. A competent leader, even if you guys feel it's better, do you really think it can happen in 1 year? You guys have improved in talent, but your depth isn't great. I don't disagree. You guys will fade later in the season if injuries happen. I don't disagree. I mean, I've been the one saying the lack of depth at some of these positions. Linebacker is another one. There's lack of depth there, lack of quality players behind. If some people on this very channel don't like the linebackers that are the starters day 1 for the Bears, and Henderson or Edmonds and Edwards. I'm personally a big fan of TJ Edwards myself. I love him. I think he's been a great. I don't think he's Roquan Smith, Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, but I think he does his job. I think he does it very well. He knows where to be. He's a tackle machine, and he's also very reliable on the football field. I think Tremaine Edmonds, I'm hoping in this Dennis Allen defense that he can return to the player he was on the Buffalo Bills. Because guys, if you go back and you look at his PFF numbers, when the Bears signed him, they signed an all-pro linebacker. He has not been an all-pro linebacker here. He was one of the best linebackers in football. I am not lying. Go look at his numbers on the Buffalo Bills. I think it was coaching, and I think now that the Bears have some better, competent coaches on this staff, I think they can elevate Tremaine Edmonds back to what he was when he was playing in Orchard Park. And that's just my opinion. I don't know what your feelings are on Tremaine Edmonds. If you've given up on him, Kyle, I just have a little faith in this coaching staff, because it's not like this guy was a bum. This guy was a freaking all-pro at Buffalo. He just didn't come to Chicago and suck. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, Sean, we talked about this on Monday, right? Vernon brought this up a couple of times. I mean, Bears fans are just so used to these coaching staffs not being able to develop these players. They just automatically assume that everybody picked outside of the 3rd round is going to end up being a bust. We don't know anything about Ruben Hippolyte. We don't know anything about Ozzie Trapilo. We don't know anything about Luther Burden. We don't know anything about Kyle Monungai. We don't know anything about any of these guys, or we don't know what this coaching staff thinks of guys like Karan Amagaji. You guys, there's a very good chance that with these competent coaches that Ben Johnson brought here to join him, especially these guys with talking about 30, 40 years of NFL experience, there's a very strong chance that these guys end up getting more out of the players that have been here already than the previous coaching staff did. I expect TJ Edwards or Tremaine Edmonds to be better, TJ Edwards to be better. I expect Javon Dexter to take a step forward this year. I expect Austin Booker to start to look like an NFL defensive end. And just real quick to get to these comments about Hendrickson. Once again, guys, I'm not Scottish Bear. I'm not saying that Hendrickson is not a good. Like, I know who Hendrickson is. I know how important he is to the Cincinnati Bengals. I know how good of an NFL player he is. I'm just saying, Sean once played a snippet of a podcast here where he said, "Why draft a running back if you know you're going to be bad for the next 3 years and waste 3 years of this guy's prime on a bad football team and let him get beat up taking all these carries?" The same could be said for a guy like Trey Hendrickson. Why go pour $40 million into a guy who is ultimately going to make your team better for sure, but he's certainly not the one piece you're missing to be better than the Philadelphia Eagles and make it to a Super Bowl. He's just, right now, the Bears aren't in that position. Now, if the Bears go fill a bunch of these holes in the offseason next year, like in free agency and the draft, we still feel like they're missing that one piece, say it's defensive end, and they feel like they're ready to compete for a Super Bowl and all they're missing is that defensive end, then you go get a guy like Trey Hendrickson. But this year, right now, it just doesn't make sense to me. You're just going to take $40 million of your salary and give it to a guy just to take this team from what? 9 to 9-8 or 10-7 and get knocked out of the first round of the playoffs, if you can even make it there, that doesn't make sense to me. What's the point of the $40 million? You guys, we had a Khalil Mack here who everybody by all accounts said would make the Bears a much better football team, but they certainly never were good enough to win a championship with Khalil Mack here. And people could talk about that double doink season all they want. The fact of the matter is it didn't happen. The double doink happened. The Bears didn't move on in the playoffs, and they didn't win a championship. So basically all we did was end up spending $158 million on Khalil Mack to watch him win us a couple extra games. We've seen this movie over and over again, and the ending always plays out the same, guys.
Yeah. And who was this fact check on TJ Edwards? Mr. Harper. Yeah, I was just kind of looking it up while Kyle was talking here. His tackle numbers in his first year: 112, 34 assisted, 3 sacks, and 1 forced fumble.
Sean, he has back-to-back 150 plus tackle seasons for the Chicago Bears.
Well, he had 90 last year, 37 assisted, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble. His numbers though is PFF.
Yeah, but the 2 years. Look at the 2 years. Look at the 2 years prior to that.
The 2 years prior to that, he had a
solo and assisted combined
for the Bears. And
well,
then
do the solo and assisted combined. It was over 150 both years. Prior to 2024, 22 and 23. If you take the solo and assisted tackles combined, he was over 150 tackles both seasons. As a matter of fact, Sean, I don't remember if it was 2022 or 2023. I think it was 2023. He led the NFL in tackling through like the first 8 weeks of the season, I believe. I mean, you guys, he's one of the cheapest linebackers in the NFL. You cannot harp on TJ Edwards and his performance based off the guy got a 3-year contract worth, I think, $18 million and has been one of the best outside linebackers in the NFL over the last 3 seasons. As a matter of fact, in 2022 and 2023, Sean, he should have made the Pro Bowl. The only reason he didn't 100%. Was because he was on the Chicago Bears.
I wanted to get this back, how we are Bears. Foulest memory. Larry Tunsil, a 4th-round pick, traded to Washington from Houston for 2026 2nd-round pick, a 2026 4th-round pick, plus what is that? Round 3, number 79, and round 7, 236. And Braxton is 5 years younger. Are you saying, Howie? I just want to make sure you're saying that this is a trade you wish the Bears would have made instead of Tunsil going over to Houston? Is that or Washington? Excuse me. Is that I'm not sure, but if you're saying that, I would have been okay if the Bears made that trade and we ended up with Laremy Tunsil. I mean, he's one of the best left tackles in football, like hands down.
He's certainly head and shoulders better than Braxton Jones. Regardless of age, it doesn't matter. When he's 30 years old, he'll play better than Braxton Jones did in his prime season. I mean, Braxton Jones just is not an elite left tackle in the NFL. You guys, I've heard a lot of things in the chat here, and I've heard a lot of things on Instagram and Twitter lately about the Bears trading Montes Sweat. I just don't think it's going to happen, guys. There's another guy that I believe both Dennis Allen and Ryan Poles like and respect a lot. And I know all the people talk about when they talk about Montes Sweat is the sack numbers, the sack totals. You guys, it's not all about sack totals. Montes Sweat 100%. Is one of the top-rated defensive ends in the NFL. If you look at the player collectively, tackles for loss, quarterback pressure, stopping the run. The quarterback hits, quarterback sacks. He is one of the top defensive ends in the NFL. That's why the Bears traded for him. They didn't trade for him because they thought he was going to come here and get 19 sacks a season. That was never going to be Montes Sweat on the Chicago Bears. They traded for him because he does everything really well, and he's one of the guys where no matter what formation the offense is in, he does not have to come off the field.
Yeah, he for me, Montes Sweat, I think he's another guy that's going to have a bounce back year. I know there's some doubters out there. This guy dealt with like 7 injuries last year. He tried to play through them. And I've said this many times on this show, whether I'm on CSP or I'm here or I'm on another podcast. I've said this guy last year when offensive game planners were setting up their game plan, they're saying, hey, shift everything towards Montes Sweat, stop him because no one else is going to do anything. He may be a great football player, but when you got 3 guys, one chipping you and then 2 guys blocking you immediately, it's going to be hard for you to perform. And I still think he did somewhat of a decent job playing through injuries, being double teamed, being game planned for. I think it's going to be, I personally think it will be a little bit harder to do that with this defense because I think Dennis Allen is going to use Kyler Gordon and Tyreek Stevenson in ways we can't even imagine He's going to get these guys off the line. He's going to get them after the quarterback. I think he's going to use these two guys. And yes, I said Tyreek Stevenson. For the people who are not a big fan, I still believe in Stevenson, and I think that Dennis Allen has some good plans in store for this gentleman in 2025.
Well, Sean, and why, a lot of Bears fans tend to have this recent memory or what have you done for me lately thought process. But at the end of the day, yes, did Montes Sweat have a down season last year? Oh, 100%. You guys tell me a Chicago Bear last year that did not have a down season. That just tends to happen when the entire team starts to snowball. But if you look at Montes Sweat the year prior, he was one of the best defensive ends in all of the NFL. He was top 10 in quarterback pressures. He was top 10 in sacks. He was top 10 in tackles for loss. He was top 10 in stopping the run. I mean, Montes Sweat, when he came to the Chicago Bears after the trade, I think they were averaging Sean, some 0.9 sacks per game. After Montes Sweat got here, I think it went up to 1.9 sacks per game. I mean, you don't have to look too hard or too deep to find the impact that Montes Sweat made. As a matter of fact, Matt Eberflus, as big of an idiot as he was as an NFL head coach, even made up a term for Montes Sweat and called it the Tez effect. Ever since he's got here, this defense has just performed better at every single level, from the defensive line to the linebackers to the corners and safeties. I mean, guys, Montes Sweat is a good player. He was just playing on a bad team. And Sean, like you said, with under Dennis Allen and with a bunch more help here now, I expect Montes Sweat to be one of the best Chicago Bears on the field in 2025. And I think a lot of these people who continue to harp on Montes Sweat are probably going to have to eat some of their words here at the end of the 2025 season. I expect this guy to be a lot more like 2023 Montes Sweat than he was last season.
I agree 100%. I'm a big Montes Sweat supporter. I personally am one of the Bears fans that loved the signing when we got him here. And I'm not blind. I know he had a down year last year. But as Kyle just pointed out, this entire Bears team didn't live up to expectations. They all had a down year, and now they have a competent coaching staff. They got people that can get under them. You already heard it in the OTAs today. These guys are firing, kicking them in the butts in May. And this is just something we did not hear with this other staff in place. These guys are going to be ready to play football.
Sean, go through the numbers. Montez Sweat had a worse season in 2025 than he did prior. DJ Moore had a worse season in 2025 than he did prior. Let's look at DeAndre Swift had a worse season in 2025.
DeAndre Swift actually had
he had over 1,000 yard rushing in Philadelphia. He had under 1,000. Yeah, but I mean, go look at the rest of it. Go look at Kyler Gordon. Kyler Gordon is probably the only one who excelled a little bit. Just Tremaine Edmonds had a worse year than he did the year prior. TJ Edwards had a worse year than the year he did prior. I mean, almost every single player on this team had a worse year than they did the year prior because the team fell apart. That's what happened.
And Kyle, I was going to say,
and they gave up.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say, right after the Washington game, which, if I'm looking at the schedule, is October 27th, about dead center, middle of the schedule last year, the wheels fell off the bus, and they just never were able to put them back on. This team threw in the towel and said, we'll be back in 2025.
Yeah, Sean, this is a team that went from beating the shit out of teams like Jacksonville to 3 weeks later getting the shit kicked out of them by a team like Arizona. I mean, you could see the switch flip. Yeah. It's the second they lost that Washington game. It's like all the wind came out of their sails and they all just gave up. And you know what, Sean? It's not just they didn't give up on the season. What they did is give up on Matt Eberflus. That's what. I love what Jediah says here. Eberflus had a much worse year than he did the year prior. That's why the Chicago Bears had a worse year than the year prior. I think after 2-3 years of coaching staff, once the players just aren't buying into it anymore, they kind of just give up and are like, well, you know what? We're just going to make business decisions until they get a coach here who can bring the Chicago Bears to a championship. And the team knew that Matt Eberflus wasn't capable of doing that.
Yeah, the nail in the coffin for me and Kyle, we were watching this game together and we were like ramming heads off of each other, was the New England game. That's when it set into me that the season was over. That was honestly outside of the Seattle game. I mean, there was a lot of bad last year. That Seattle game was one of the worst Bears games I've ever watched in my entire freaking life. Football games in general, not just the Bears.
It was
terrible, dude. And then you have you just saw it in that New England game. I mean, the New England should not have come to Chicago. That should have been a remounting for the Chicago Bears against the New England Patriots. And they came out zero fight. They got their ass not handed to them because it was another boring football game, but you couldn't do anything against the hapless New England Patriots last year. That was that killed
Sean, a team I think finished the season with, I think it was 23 sacks they finished the season with, and they got 9 against the Chicago Bears. I mean, that team would have finished the season with 14 sacks if they never played the Chicago Bears. I mean, that is absolutely unacceptable. And you know what, Phil, you absolutely nailed it right here. Eberflus lost the team, and that was it. Clear as a bright summer's day. I couldn't agree with you more. Eberflus, that's 100%. The way you couldn't word it any better. Matt Eberflus lost this team. He lost the players. They lost faith in him, and I think they just didn't have the desire to put themselves in harm's way for a team they knew wasn't going anywhere, Sean.
And he hit this on the head too. Bad game management, zero accountability. I mean, the in-game management for the Chicago Bears last year was one of the worst I've seen on many levels.
Sean, for me personally, the worst. That is the worst. I mean, you talk about. I mean, week in, you guys, we got to the point where the announcers every Sunday were like, God, this team just always finds a way to screw it up. I mean, they were calling Matt Eberflus out without saying his name every week. You guys go watch the end of that Lions game. Go watch the highlights. 3 times the announcers say, "What are the Bears doing? How can they do this every single week?" Week in and week out. Every single week, this team just finds a way to screw things up. That is calling Matt Eberflus out. That's exactly what they were doing. And I love the I still to this day, Sean, I believe that the national media and the fan base alike forced the Chicago Bears' hands into firing Matt Eberflus and
making a move they've never made before.
The first time in their entirety of the franchise that they did that. Now, yes, I know people are going to say, no, George Halas did leave in the middle of the season once, but you guys, that was to go fight in a war. That wasn't because he got fired.
He got Wally pipped in New York. I love Foster. I love Foster here. Barely a staff in 24. Love it. So, I think we beat this down far enough, and I kind of wanted to do the Luther Burden thing, and, we're going to spend, not too much time on Luther Burden, but I did want to get into this Luther Burden thing because I know I kind of got goofy looks from Kyle and these guys when I said Luther Burden could end up being better than Roma Dunze. And that's not a knock on Roma Dunze saying Roma Dunze is bad. It's the talent and the ability that this guy has, Luther Burden has for, his yak ability. This guy can line up in various positions, slot, outside, backfield. He can be a punt returner, excuse me. He's a very valuable piece in a motion-heavy offense. 6 foot, 206 pounds. This guy was going into the season, and I touched on it a little bit ago, he was in conversation to be a top 5 pick in this NFL draft. Now, whatever happened in Missouri, God, that's another name I never say. I don't watch anything to do with anything from that place. They called Missouri. They can kiss my ass. I don't know what happened to that season or how that developed that he fell all the way to 39, but you can tell when you watch him that says every team that passed me is going to pay. This kid was pissed he fell out of the first round. He is a first round talent, and I hate to tell you guys this. You go back to the season that Rome had prior to him being drafted by the Bears in the first round. He wasn't even considered a first round pick going into the season. He worked himself into it the way Burden obviously worked himself out of it. So, and I like Roma Dunze. I think he has a lot of ability, taking the top off the defense. He's going to be your guy at the boundary, taking the guys. I just love everything that this guy can do on the football field. He's impactful. He's explosive. I don't know that the Bears, and I'm just telling you guys this, I've heard him say he's the Amon-Ra St. Brown of this offense. Guys, I'm going to tell you this. He might be better than St. Brown. The things that he can do, watch his tape. He might be unstoppable. That's all I'm saying. I love this kid. I love the draft. I hate the school he went to, but I love this kid a lot. Kyle, I don't know where you are, and I know it's a lot for a guy who's never touched the turf in a regular season game for me to be saying this, but this is me putting my heart on my sleeve saying this is what I think about Luther Burden and his ability and what he can do for the Chicago Bears. I don't know where you are with him. Talk to me, Goose.
Yeah, for me personally, Sean, it was never really a question of Luther Burden's skill set or talent. I mean, what's even more impressive than his speed is his quickness, just how quick he is with his feet. He's a gadgety type player. And you know what? I could very much see him being an Amon-Ra St. Brown type player. This is a guy who I think is going to get open and often, and he could become a security blanket for Caleb Williams. The concerns with Luther Burden are more just some of the mental stuff we hear about, right? The character issues. Like, so for just for example, guys, I looked up just a couple of scouts, and you know what? There was plenty of good things said about Luther Burden by scouts as well, but here's some of the negatives that I read up and I found here today. He's a 5-star recruit. They had to kiss his ass for 3 years just to keep him in Missouri. The girlfriend is his manager, and the mom is a problem. He's a good player on Saturday, and he's very ordinary, but he's very ordinary Monday through Friday. That's an area he's going to have to improve on. So basically, he doesn't give much effort in practice. And then the last one said, Luther Burden will slip out of the first round due to his discipline and effort concerns. And that's exactly what happened. Now, Sean, I don't know what's going to happen with Luther Burden. I can't say whether or not I think he's going to be better than Rome Odunze. I hope he's better than Rome Odunze. I hope he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. Yeah. And, you know, I have heard experts compare him to the likes of Antonio Brown, who we all know, guys, is probably a top 10 wide receiver in NFL history. If Luther Burden could do that, that would be amazing for the Chicago Bears. I mean, you go back and look at his sophomore season. This guy had 86 receptions for 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and averaged almost 15 yards a catch. Listen, there's no doubt that the talent was there. I like Luther Burden a lot, and I think the draft pick was amazing. We all know that Dustin picked the Bears projected the Bears to draft Luther Burden at 39.
Hey, Kyle, can I stop you right there? Melon Smasher. You just said no single Bears YouTube channel wanted Luther Burden. Our very own Dustin Jones predicted the Bears to take him at 39. So you can scratch that off because this very Bears channel, Dustin Jones, did do that. Go ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
Yeah, and Sean, the skill set is unmatched. I mean, you just don't see many guys who have the skill set of Luther Burden. First of all, like I said, he's a phenomenal route runner. He gets open a lot. He's one of those guys that is very gadgety and hard to cover. On top of that, man, like you said, Sean, this guy could be used anywhere on the field. Yeah. His last season in college, he had 9 carries for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 13 yards a carry. I mean, could you imagine if any running back in the NFL was averaging 13 yards a carry? I mean, this guy can be used in a variety of different ways. I think the potential for Luther Burden is basically sky's the limit, Sean. I think this guy could, if he can end up being Antonio Brown, that's best case scenario for the Chicago Bears. The question is, can the Bears control the character concerns? Can the Bears get the most out of Luther Burden when he does not have the ball in his hands? Is he going to be a willing blocker? We already know Rome Odunze is willing to block. We know Rome Odunze is willing to put the work in. You look at Rome Odunze's college career, he had 75 catches his junior year for 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. His senior year, he had 92 catches for 1,600 yards, 18 yards per catch, and 13 touchdowns. I mean, Sean, the good thing for the Chicago Bears is these guys have 2 totally different skill sets. I believe that Rome Odunze is going to be the guy who can take the top off the defense and who can go get those 50-50 balls when Caleb Williams is in trouble. I think Luther Burden's going to see a lot of his work at the line of scrimmage, a lot like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they're going to expect him to take a 3, 4, 5-yard screen or slant route and turn it into a 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown. The best case scenario for the Chicago Bears is not only are all these guys great NFL players, but they all have different skill sets, can all be used in a variety of different ways to constantly keep the defense guessing. But I will say this, Sean. You add Luther Burden to Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. You had Colston Loveland to Cole Kmet. This Bears offense is starting to look pretty scary on paper. And if the Bears can put it together and Ben Johnson can put these guys in position to succeed and they can get the most out of all these guys, I just don't know how you defend this offense. I really don't. And you know what? The scary part is the Chicago Bears know that this is not a complete roster. They're going to go into the next season and they're going to try. I assume that they're going to go get their Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon Barkley, that premier running back. I don't think this roster is complete. I think this team's only going to get better. And I'm telling you guys, if they keep doing what they're doing and Ryan Poles keeps doing what he's doing, this should be a championship caliber roster in 2026 or 2027.
Yeah, and you know, I like exactly what Scottish Bear here said because he took the words right out of my mouth. Burton has the right receivers, wide receivers coach, and Antoine Randall I think this is the key element that people are forgetting about. He was able to reel in Jamison Williams, by all accounts, big problem coming in out of the draft into Detroit. He had some off-field incidents. You've seen Antoine Randall out grab him by the jersey on the sideline. I remember watching this during the game and put his head on straight. So I do think that some of these things are going to come into question, or won't come into question because he does have that right coach, Scottish Barrett. You hit the nail right on the head. There is a little background history too here. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. Luther Burden and Caleb Williams were both committed to Oklahoma at the same time and have known each other since high school. So they have a familiar connection. Obviously, you saw he decommitted, went to Missouri, and Williams eventually transferred to USC and followed I can't think of the coach's name. Second show in a row, I can't remember the damn coach's name from USC. Lincoln Riley, yay! But yeah, there's something here, man. And like I said, I love his ability to operate inside and outside. It adds depth and flexibility to this offense. Like I personally think that he is going to have an immediate impact. I don't know if he'll be an immediate starter, but I think if they get him on and they start plugging him in places, I think his ability to make plays happen, big splash plays happen, will get him on the field, but get him on the field more. But as I say that, his areas for development, and this is one thing, no block, no rock. Blocking is an area of improvement for Luther Burden. And his ability against press coverage is also a knock on him. So maybe you don't use him in these situations. Maybe you get him in the backfield, you move him into motion. So he's not, he's getting out. This guy's going to be great on curl routes, little seam routes, little hitch plays. You put Burden and Swift in the backfield, the defense is going to be on their heels. Like I'm so excited with all of these tools, man, that the Bears have in this toolbox coming into 2025. And not only that they have those tools, they have the mastermind that knows how to use these tools and get them into winning positions. I love it. I am so excited. And I think every Chicago Bears fan should be overcome with joy right now and just thrilled to the nines about what the Chicago Bears, because we've never seen this. We talked about this the other day, Kyle. And correct me if I'm wrong. I know they won a Super Bowl in '85, but in recent memory, let's just say, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, Matt Forte, Jay Cutler, best offense the Bears have had.
Yeah, well, in my lifetime, for sure.
Yeah, I think this offense is going to top it. I do.
Well, yeah, Sean, you and I talked about this personally the other day. For me, Sean, the question is not whether who's going to be better, Rome Odunze or Luther Burden. For me, the question is how good can all three of these guys be on the Chicago Bears? I mean, Sean, we talked about you. I know you know his name. I'm sorry, it escapes me. But we talked about the Bears' all-time leading wide receiver, and he had barely over 5,000 yards. Yeah, he had barely over 5,000 yards on this franchise. I think it was like 5,045 yards or something like that. I think there's a chance that Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore will all finish their Bears careers with over 5,000 yards receiving. I think all three of these guys can break the Bears' all-time leading record. And due in part to the fact that for once on the Chicago Bears, I do believe that we have a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams and a guy who's capable of getting them the ball and putting them in positions to get yards after the catch, to score touchdowns. Sean, like you said, this offense, whether I don't know about the Bears' record. I'm not going to come out here and say that I think the Bears are going to go 15-2. But man, regardless of where this team finishes in the standings, in the NFC North, the NFC, and in the NFL. This is going to be fun to watch for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna see a Williams to Burden connection, a Williams to Moore connection, a Williams to Odunze connection. I mean, when you're, for the first time in a long time for me, defensive coordinators like Brian Flores, who were playing week one, he's gonna take his head off and be like, damn. How am I going to stop all these weapons for the Chicago Bears? Like, and week one here, the Bears will have a competitive advantage in that week one matchup in my mind. because Brian Flores isn't changing his defense. He's going to be running his 70% pressures against the Bears. Our offensive line holds up. He doesn't know what offense Ben Johnson. You could say, oh, there's some familiarity from Detroit. He already said this isn't going to be the same offense as Detroit. They don't have Sonic and Knuckles. They are going to probably try and run the ball, which was incredibly tough to do against Minnesota. I think last year they only gave up like 77 rushing yards a game. So you're going to have to figure out a way to beat them in a different way. And using these tools, little hitch routes, curl routes, getting the ball into explosive players' hands that can move those chains in 5 to 10 yard chunks, out of the backfield. It's going to blow my mind. I think it's going to blow all of our minds when the Bears actually do hit the field and you start seeing these different schemes and formations. And Kyle, we're going to be there. And I'm going to promise you this. At some time during that football game, when we're sitting there watching Monday Night Football together, we're going to look at each other and be like, what the hell was that? That was awesome.
Yeah. And Sean, I've talked about this before, maybe not on this podcast, but you guys, since joining Minnesota, Brian Flores has given up over 30.7 times. Ben Johnson is responsible for 4 of those times. So these are 2 guys who know each other well and have seen each other often. The problem I have with the Minnesota Vikings, and the reason I'm picking the Bears, it's not solely based off the fact that I'm a biased Bears fan. It's based off the fact that they have a rookie quarterback coming into Chicago on Monday night in prime time in one of the most high-pressure, high-leverage situations he's ever played in his entire life and his first game ever. And like you said, Sean, we know that the Minnesota Vikings commit to stopping the run, right? That's kind of their philosophy. We stack everybody up at the line of scrimmage, throw some blitzes at them, some pressures at them, make kind of things, get creative with things, and make sure we stop the run. But, I mean, if you commit to stopping the run for the Chicago Bears, who now have a very good interior offensive line who can get 2 or 3 yards carry just by running it up the middle. Yeah. If you're committing everybody in your entire defense, probably your strong safety is stopping the run. Who's stopping Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Luther Burden, Roma Dunze, and DJ Moore? I mean, one of these guys is not going to get double coverage. And by all accounts, Sean, all 5 of these guys are pretty good at contested catches and 50-50 balls. So, I mean, even when Caleb Williams is in trouble and he is getting pressured by the Minnesota Vikings defense, it still might bite them in the ass because all he basically has to do is throw it up in the air to Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, and 8, 9 times out of 10, these guys are going to come down with it, especially against that Viking secondary, which leaves a lot to be desired for me personally.
Hey, and Dustin, just so you know, I don't know, you're just checking in with us, man. Thanks for checking in, bro. We did call out Melon Smash. We did let him know that you called this out on the show because he said no other channel has ever done was calling for Luther Burden. We did let him know that our very own Dustin Jones had looked into his crystal ball and predicted the 39th pick in the NFL draft, and he was dead balls accurate on that. So congratulations on that, Dustin. Yeah. So for me again, I'm over the moon. I don't know what to expect. Like we started off the show talking about these OTAs. We're going to hear about these bumps, bites, and bruises that are going to come through as they learn this new system. But the other thing, I love the intelligence level of all these players that are on this team. I think DJ Moore is intelligent. I think Roma Dunze is intelligent. Colston Loveland, I don't really know enough about Colston Loveland.
Well, he's a very smart guy.
Yeah, for his football IQ.
And he grew up on a farm, which certainly, I think work ethic is probably not something the Bears are going to be concerned about for a guy who grew up working on a farm, which we all know is some of the most physical, grueling work you can do. Just ask Brandon. Once real quick, again, guys, Lindsay just joined the show here. Howie, Dustin, Jodiah, Breaking News, Bruce, Ant Mass, Scottish Bear, Howie, Erica, T, Melon Smasher, Brandon's in the house here. Liz is in the house. Foster's in the house. Breaking News, Bruce, of course. Thank you so much to everybody who's joining the show here tonight, guys. And I don't want to forget Daniel as well, because Daniel Jeffries, who I think was the first person to join us here today. Please, if you have not already, hit that like and subscribe button. If you guys do enjoy watching the 4-Star Chicago Sports Podcast, please share it with a friend. You guys were just under that 500 subs on YouTube. We'd like to try to get there by the end of this week. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate everything you do for us. And like we said 1,000 times, without you guys, we would not be doing this at all. Sean, what do you want to get into?
I want to get into
the local comedy legend.
No, I want to just before we do that, I want to get into a couple nuggets and tidbits from around the league. Margie Harris, the owner of the Commanders, came out today and said, we have so much to look forward to because the Commanders are now America's team.
I'd say it's the other team with the Indians who haven't changed their name, if anything. I'd say the Kansas City Chiefs. Sean, I've basically gotten to the point growing up throughout my life watching the NFL, watching sports in general, to come to realize that who's ever dominating the sport at that time is America's team. It was the Dallas Cowboys, it was the 49ers, it was the New England Patriots, it was the Kansas City Chiefs, and Taylor Swift and everybody, all that. It's whoever is dominating the sport, who's ever in the middle of a dynasty usually is considered America's team. And I can tell you this, the Washington Commanders couldn't be further from that.
You're damn right. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was the crybaby, the little babies from up north, the guys that have this guy at their quarterback, whose name I hate to say, who the league decided to make their patsy to try and ixnay the tush push.
Well, Sean, the Bears did as well.
Did they? I only heard
Bears,
it was the Green Bay Packers.
No, the Bears. 22 teams voted to abolish the tush push in the NFL. The Chicago Bears being one of them. They needed 25 teams in order to ban the tush push. They didn't get the 25, so the tush push will continue into the future.
The tush push is alive.
You know, it's funny to me too, Sean. We talked about this before, you and I personally. If people act like the tush push is an unstoppable play, but the only team that's unstoppable when they run the tush push are the Philadelphia Eagles. We've watched other teams do this, and it doesn't look as good. We watched Josh Allen couldn't get a fourth down in the playoffs. Yeah. We watched the Chicago Bears try it a couple of times last year, and it didn't look good at all. If the Bears could run the tush push, they would have scored a touchdown against Indianapolis at the 1 yard line instead of losing 5 yards on a run pass option to DeAndre Swift. The reason that the Philadelphia Eagles are so good at running that tush push is because they have a massive offensive line. That's why they're the team in the NFL that's best at running it, because they had guards over 340 pounds. Now, they did lose one of those guards, so it might look a little bit different for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. But I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not a fan of the tush push, then find a way to stop it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a leverage play, guys. You know, they get better leverage. They get low enough. And, you know, they asked Grady Jarrett about this today, and Grady Jarrett's response was hilarious. I mean, he was like, dude, stop it. You know, and Nick Sirianni came out and said, look, man, he goes, it's the NFL. He goes, A.J. Brown's great at catching deep balls. Should we ban the deep ball too? Like, it's a good play. You beat it, stop it, figure out a way. I mean, I'm happy. I am happy that the tush push stayed. It also now bumps Jalen Hurts back up on my fantasy radar because he'll be getting those 1 yard touchdowns with the tush push still alive. So yeah, just a couple of things. They did change the rule on onside kicks too, and I apologize. I forgot to look it up, but they did change the rule on onside kicks where you could call it now at any time during the game, I believe, in which you are trailing, instead of just having to call it in the fourth quarter or whatever the stupid rule was. And again, I find it dumb as hell. Just who cares? Football's a strategy game. If they want to do an onside kick in the middle of the second quarter, let them. Who gives a shit? Like, these rules that they're trying to change.
Yeah, Sean, I'm starting to get concerned that maybe safety is going to ruin the game here. I mean, yeah, I understand that you should be looking out for the player's safety, and that's first and foremost the most important thing when it comes to the NFL. But this is a violent game, and that's the reason that people have fallen in love with it, is because it is such a violent game. Whether we like it or not, we are primitive creatures, and we love to see violence, just like the gladiators back in the Roman days. But I mean, the good news is from these meetings, everything the Packers proposed was shut down, because the Packers also proposed that you should not be guaranteed a first down for defensive holding, and the NFL was like, that's ridiculous. If you're not penalized by giving the other team a first down, these teams are just going to hold on every single play and take the 5 yard penalty, right? Like, so that's another thing that the NFL shut down real quick. But yeah, it seems like the Packers are just trying to change the game entirely every single year. And I really don't understand it, especially for a team that is one of the original six that has been in the NFL since 1926. I don't understand how you could possibly be so they just seems like they just want to change the entirety of the NFL, and it doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, at the end of the day, Sean, it's a violent sport, and you'd like it to stay that way. Obviously, they need to be concerned about player safety, but the NFL is loved for a reason. The reason that it's the number one sport in America is because of the violence, and people love watching it. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, we don't got too much time left here in today's show, and I wanted to wrap it up, with a guy who is near and dear to me and a lot of Chicagoans, and Norm Peterson. This is one of my favorite commercials with the whole double doink. What is a double doink? The double doink is when Brett Favre gets sacked and throws an interception on the same play. Then he chucks the Alexa and the bird catches it. The guy goes intercepted. I mean, from scenes like this, that made him famous. And we're going to play something here. He baptized Peyton Manning, and he got his calling. George Wendt, best known for his role as Norm Peterson on Cheers. Their super fan Bob Swirsky. He's been long recognized as a warm-hearted, kind individual. Had a very relatable presence. His good nature and charm was always evident on screen and off. People who knew him very well said he had a very approachable demeanor, dry wit. He appealed to every man. He was beloved in American pop culture. And I will tell you this, Cheers to this day is the Cheers finale is the second highest rated television program in the history of television, only behind MASH's finale. And when you put that in with sports, it still ranks number 7. That just shows the staying power of Cheers. It shows the staying power of this guy. Norm Peterson is one of my favorite on-screen characters in the history of television. I love Norm. His one-liners when they would open Cheers will live on forever. He's going to live in my heart forever. And we're going to reminisce here. Hey, man, long live George Wendt. I have another piece here if you guys want to reminisce. We'll reminisce for one more minute, man.
Baby Peyton, my son, are you ready to be baptized into the Bears super phantom?
Well, I'm not drunk, so no, not really.
Peyton the Lesser, do you believe in Hallis, the Papa Bear Almighty, and in Iron Mike Ditka, his only son, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit and suffered under Mike McCaskey, who descended into the hell that is Dallas, but rose again and ascended into heaven, otherwise known as a certain city where the meat stuffed the streets, Chicago IL? Do you believe in Pierce before noon, the Holy Sweetness, and Brats everlasting?
I do.
Well then, Peyton, in the name of the Papa, the Ditka, and the 46 defense, I baptize thee into this Italian beef juice and out as a Bears superfan.
Just great stuff, man. And Scottish Bear just put, man, Jim Irsay has passed away. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's astonishing, man. He every interview I've seen of him recently, he seemed like he was like a younger than his age, man. That's sorry to hear that for all Colts fans, man. That's rough, dude.
Yeah, and I personally have watched 18 minutes, and you guys, I found it on Twitter today. It was 18 minutes of every opening line that George Wendt had on Cheers. And you talk about classic television, man. I'm going to be using some of these throughout my life moving forward. They're absolutely fantastic. Watch Cheers. I'm going to watch Cheers again. I believe it's going to be coming back on Peacock starting from season 1. I believe it was either June 15th or July 15th, one of the two. So it'll be back here pretty soon. But yeah, man. Jebediah, yeah, this guy was amazing. And for those who don't know, he was from Chicago, Illinois. I believe he was born in Beverly, if I'm not mistaken. And he had a lot of ties to the Kansas City Royals as well. But he was unfortunately a diehard Southsider, White Sox fan. But good for him, man. Rest in peace, George. Condolences to him and his family. Your memory will live on with us forever. And God bless you. And the Bears. The Bears.
Anything else before we get out of here, Sean?
Anything else before we get out of here? I want to thank everybody in the chat for joining us today. We know these days are rough, guys, when there's not a lot of news out there, but you guys keep us going, man. You guys really, really do. We appreciate you. Scottish Bear, Jebediah, Ron, Phil, Howie, Romy. I missed you coming in, Rome. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, bud. Dustin, Brando, Lindsay, Elizabeth, everybody in the chat.
Erica, Melon Smasher, Ant Mass, Phil.
There you go. Thank
Breaking News, Bruce. Dante was in here at one point. Danielle, thank you so much to everybody who joined the show. As always, man, we appreciate you guys.
We love
Please,
you guys.
Once more, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Sean, anything else you want to get to before we get out?
Anything you want to get out there before we wrap up?
Shit, fuck Green Bay.
All right. Yeah. Let's go. That'll
Boys,
Love y'all.
I believe Dustin is returning tomorrow. I don't have 100% fact on that or not. But if he's not, then you'll see this shining face again on the bare minimum. But if not, Dustin, welcome back. If you are coming back tomorrow, but the bare minimum will be on. Stay tuned for that. Kyle and I will be back on Saturday for the Northside 9, covering the Chicago Cubs, and they had just taken 2 out of 3 from the Miami Marlins.
Should have been 3 out of 3.
The Queen City in Cincinnati, where they will. Did Cincinnati lose today? Because I know it was down to 3.5 games. So this series, I hate to say it's super important, but you would not want to leave Cincinnati not winning 2 of 3, and the Chicago Cubs will be facing 1, 2, and 3 in their rotation. So this is going to be a very tough season or series for the Cubs, leading off with Hunter Green on Friday. So, and he's living up to his status. I mean, he's got a 236 earned run average. He's got a .80 whip. He's not getting hit. So the Cubs are going to have to find a way to generate runs and get out of there with the win. Andrew Abbott, coming the day after, is also having a fantastic season for the Reds. They are getting some quality pitching. Their bullpen is a little bit of a question. So keep the game close, get into that bullpen, and do what you do. Win the football or win the baseball game. Let's go, Cubbies. Until we see you all
prayers
again.
to George Wendt and Jim Hershey's family, guys.
Yes, we lost
Appreciate
2 legends.
everybody joining us. Guys, stay safe. Take care of yourself so you can take care of each other, man. We'll see you next time.
Bear down.
The Bears.